Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network, and we're presented by crazy fast internet, Ting Fiber Internet. The best used to power and present this network for you to get more knowledge about our community. We feature the best of Charlottesville, Virginia, with the mission of showcasing the community in a positive spotlight so you, the viewer and listener, become more informed about what's going on in Central Virginia. Again, thank you for joining us. We will welcome to the program a friend of the show. I call him Coach Ed Pierce. From his time coaching at Western Albemarle in the Jefferson District, my first job out of the University of Virginia was as a sports writer for the Daily Progress. And here I am, a 22-year-old kid covering football and basketball and sports around the region. While doing this in such impressionable years, I got to know a lot of coaches that had an impact on me. Brud Bicknell at Western Albemarle High School had an impact on me. Skip Hudgens at Western Albemarle Baseball had a positive impact on me. Ed Pierce and how he went about his life, his business, and leading young men had an impact on me. Today, we will welcome Coach Pierce to the show as the owner of Meriwether Springs Vineyard and Brewery. We will catch up with Coach to see how his family business is doing. They are reopening again, which is fantastic. We'll ask him how the business managed COVID and his predictions for business from here on out. Frankly, from my standpoint, I see Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2021 being absolutely gangbusters for folks in restaurants, vineyards, breweries, and hospitality. I'm curious to hear Coach Pierce's take on that topic. We'll also talk with Alex Urpí, the Chief Executive Officer of Emergent Financial Services, on the show to talk electric vehicles, the sector he likes, and rising gas prices. So much to cover on today's show. Before we get to the headlines, I want to ask you to put something on your calendar because I think it's going to be really, really important for the future of Charlottesville, Virginia. We have 2 spots on Charlottesville City Council that are open this year, Nakaya Walker spot and Heather Hill spot. The first step to filling those spots is a June 8th Democratic primary. There are 4 Democrats that are running for council. This June 8th primary will whittle the list of 4 down to 2. The I Love CVille Network is doing its part to bring knowledge to you. On Tuesday, April 6th, I now have confirmation from everybody involved. On Tuesday, April 6th at 12:30 on this very network, former City Councilor Kathy Galvin, someone who knows council and Charlottesville business more than just about everyone out there, Kathy will host a live debate on this network. In the studio will be Carl Brown, Yaz Washington, Brian Pinkston, and Juan Diego Wade. It will be the most watched debate in Charlottesville history by far. Remember, most live debates are done in an auditorium with little people in attendance. We're going to put this live debate on every social media platform possible, and the debate will live in perpetuity online. In my business, that's called evergreen content. So on Tuesday, April 6th, Kathy Galvin will host a live debate on this network so you, the viewer, and you, the listener, can become more informed with who is running for City Council as we head to the June 8th Democratic primary. I expect every media outlet in town to cover this debate with reporters either in the studio or reaching out to the candidates after the debate on the I Love CVille Network. Tuesday, April 6th at 12:30. Please put it on your list. All right, let's talk topics today on the program. And my business, my building is in downtown Charlottesville. We are either on Market Street or walking the downtown mall when we're taking a break from work. As I'm walking from the Charlottesville Pavilion to the Omni Hotel, the most important 7 or 8 blocks in the city of Charlottesville by far, I've noticed a few things. Here's what I've noticed. The foot traffic on the mall during the week is upticking considerably. If you had considered the foot traffic on the mall during the week, say 2 months ago, it was a ghost town. Literally nobody on the mall during the week. Now, with the weather turning, with vaccines becoming more ubiquitous, and as consumer confidence is growing, I noticed the foot traffic Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday has uptick. Remember, many of the businesses downtown, when the economy is humming, yes, they crush it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when tourists and locals alike come downtown. But the business that really separates the mediocre ones from the great ones, it's the business that's generated downtown Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you can generate some revenue Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that's just gravy because you know you have a captive audience in a captive market on the weekend. So here's the question I'm asking you. Fridays after 5. When does Fridays after 5 return? We know Fridays after 5 is a huge anchor for bringing people downtown. The Sprint Pavilion, the Jefferson Theater, the Southern, the Paramount, very important brands and music venues for getting people back on the mall. Well, NBC 29 caught up with Kirby Hutto, the general manager of the Sprint Pavilion. And Kirby said, maybe May we will see Fridays after 5 going again on the downtown mall. He said, we're going to beta test some live music first in a social distance capacity. But maybe May for Fridays after 5 in Charlottesville. Folks, are you seeing the things like I'm seeing? This is what I read. This is how I'm seeing the tea leaves. Vaccines are getting in people's arms at pretty quick rates right now. The weather is turning and spring has sprung. We have more daylight because we sprung forward with the clocks. Consumer confidence is upticking. We have saved money during this pandemic because we have not gone out to happy hour restaurants and other shopping because we've been at home. And you may disagree with this. I was talking about this on Real Talk, the show we do Tuesdays and Fridays at 10:15 a.m. on this network. I was talking about this with my good buddy Keith Smith. I think the second, third, and fourth quarters of this year may be synonymous with the boom that we saw in the roaring 20s as people are eager to get back and find that human connection we have missed for so long because of this pandemic. Now, there are a couple things that could potentially stifle this boom or this return or this roaring 20s mindset. One of the things that I'm concerned about, so much so that I'm going to ask Alex Urpí, the CEO of Emergent Financial Services, about it later today, is the increase in gasoline prices. We see prices in Charlottesville that are what? Roughly $3 a gallon, Judah? In Charlottesville, Virginia, kind of in that market.
I'm seeing $2.70.
You're seeing $2.70. I saw $2.83 yesterday. I went to Brown's on Avon, and if you pump 10 gallons of gas at Brown's, you get a free piece of fried chicken. So that's where I went to fill up the Explorer yesterday, and my bill hit over $50. I think it was $2.83 a gallon. The question I have for you, if gas continues to uptick, how will gasoline prices almost be the scales of justice that could balance or tip consumer confidence in the wrong direction? Gasoline prices impact disposable income. We all know this. So as the prices go up, we have less spending power. On top of that, remember, because of the stimulus packages and the money the federal government has been flooding into America, we undoubtedly have some inflation on our hands. So here's what's happened. You got trillions and trillions of dollars that have flooded from the federal government to Americans from Virginia to California, from Texas to Alaska. This flood of free money is making things in our world, in our community, in our states, in our cities, in our neighborhoods, more expensive than they were before the pandemic. It's called inflation. You add that with increased gas prices, and the trepidation is it impacts consumer buying power. Do I see that happening in 2021? Maybe the tail end. But it's something I think we all should watch closely, okay? I also think the rise of electric vehicles is something that we need to prioritize even more because we've noticed because of this pandemic and in this area in particular, housing is so expensive in the urban core, the Charlottesville, Albemarle core, housing is so expensive. So we're seeing folks move to Waynesboro, Nelson, Fluvanna, Orange, Green for some more affordability. Here's the question I ask you. If you live in Waynesboro, Green, Fluvanna, and Orange, and you bought your house on the mindset of $1.80 or $2.10 gas a gallon, and that number jumps to $4 and change a gallon, and you have to commute from Waynesboro to the epicenter of employment, which is the city of Charlottesville. UVA's here, Martha Jefferson's here, right? So many big-time employers here. If you have to commute here, what is that going to do to your purchasing power? We'll talk about that today with Alex Urpí. I saw yesterday the Bebedero hopping, the Whiskey Jar hopping, Citizen Burger Bar hopping, Three Notch hopping. I saw the weekend people coming to the mall, coming to Midtown in the corner and patronizing small and medium-sized locally owned businesses, the business owners that we call our neighbors. I love seeing that because I think we're turning the corner. I'm more concerned, let me choose my words carefully. I'm equally as concerned about rising gas prices as I am a potential pickup in cases. I know Italy and Germany are experiencing a third wave and considering a third lockdown, another lockdown around Easter. I get it. But I think something we're not emphasizing enough around here because we're so consumed with this pandemic is this uptick in gas. We'll talk about it with Alex Urpí. Fridays after 5, potentially in May, you see things opening back up. I think the next topic we should discuss is still in the car category, J-Dubs, and it's the fact that we have another big brand in vehicles coming to Charlottesville. Let's get it on screen. CarLotz coming to Richmond Road. This is a big-time brand. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs to you from the Richmond Times-Dispatch, who published this story, I'd say, 12 hours ago? I have a voracious appetite for reading. I just love to read. Okay, I just love to read anything. News, sports, stocks, finance. And reading Richmond Times-Dispatch this morning, CarLotz plans to open its 4th location in Virginia. The Richmond-based business said yesterday that it's going to open up a location in Charlottesville by the end of May. So that's in the second quarter of this year. It's going to be at 1389 Richmond Road. CarLotz sells used vehicles on consignment. You heard me correctly. CarLotz sells used vehicles on consignment. Bring your vehicle, we'll sell it for you, we'll take a piece. It's like the consignment house on the downtown mall. You bring in something that's an antique, you give it to the owner of the consignment house on the downtown mall, they put it on their shelf, they sell it for you, you rake a percentage of the deal. Same thing here. The reason I'm bringing up CarLotz coming to Charlottesville and on Richmond Road by the end of May is for a number of reasons. A, selling vehicles on consignment, I think, is a very novel concept. I think it's a very intriguing concept. Does it exist in Charlottesville right now? I don't think it does, but if I'm wrong, please let me know in the feed. C, or is that B? C or B, whatever it is, the space that is cars and transportation is super competitive. Did you know Carvana? I also own stock in Carvana, been an investor in Carvana for a while. Did you know Carvana is opening up one of their car towers outside of Richmond? It's literally a vending machine for vehicles, what Carvana is doing. They're looking at Richmond and they're flirting with areas around Charlottesville. You're seeing new major players come into this market trying to take market share away from local folks. I hate to see that, frankly, but that's what's exactly happening. So CarLotz enters this market by the end of May. They're going to sell vehicles on consignment. They already have 2 locations in Richmond and 1 in Chesapeake. This is a business that is rapidly expanding, and they see the deep amounts of money and the level of affluence in this community, and they want a piece of that. We'll follow that closely and see the impact that CarLotz has on not only Charlottesville, but in particular, a competitive buying and selling automobile space. The next headline for today, Judah Wickower, is something I'm really excited about. It's a conversation I'm going to have with a friend of this program, Ed Pierce. I'll give you a little background from my standpoint on Coach Pierce. First met this gentleman at Western Albemarle when he was coaching the Western Albemarle football team. As class gets, Ed Pierce, just a class act. I also got a taste of, got a feel of the Pierce family while covering his sons, Andy and Christian, who are fantastic athletes. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. In Andy and Christian's case, it certainly didn't fall far from Ed, just a class A+ guy. And this interview, which will be about 15 minutes long, I'd like to spend some time chatting with Coach about his business, how they manage COVID, and the expectations for Meriwether Springs Vineyard and Brewery moving forward as they open and as folks from Ivy to Crozet to Charlottesville to Louisa flood Meriwether Springs to support this business. I know we certainly will. Alex, I rang you by mistake. I'm going to call you at 1:10. I apologize, Alex Urpí. I'm going to reach out to Ed Pierce right now. Judah Wickhauer is our director. He's fantastic people. Coach Pierce is on the line, Judah Wickhauer. Ed, if we can get you to get that camera turned on so we can see that face of yours, that would be absolutely fantastic. There we go. This gentleman, the co-owner of Meriwether Springs. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm great, Jerry. How are you?
Doing well, my friend.
Great to see you, man.
It's great to see you as well. Why don't we start open-ended? You're opening the business again, Coach. You're open.
We are, man. We opened back in the spring, had a great spring and summer and fall, and obviously circumstances weren't what anybody wanted, but we were fortunate. We had a lot of open space. It's a lot of green space, and we had people that were coming out of places where COVID hit them really hard. So we had people coming from all over. And it was just a great time. We're excited to be reopening.
How did you guys, Coach, manage winter? I mean, talk to us. So here's the thing. One thing we do with this show is we try to showcase positivity, but we're not oblivious to the vulnerability we all experienced during this pandemic. All of us were wondering how we're gonna, are we gonna keep the lights on? Are we gonna be able to come to work? Can you give us some insight into some of the vulnerability your family business was feeling?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that everybody's hurting. One of the things we struggled with is how do we manage public safety, public health at the same time you're running a business. So, I think that's the responsible thing to do. I think as I look around Charlottesville, Albemarle County, everybody seems to be walking that line very well. It's difficult, of course, but, I think that if you create an environment and invite people to come into that environment and they're confident that things are taken care of and that they're safe, then that's the only thing that makes sense here. And so, yes, you get hurt a little bit economically doing that, but at the same time, you feel like that's the only way to operate.
Coach, how about this? Did you see with Vineyard? I mean, you guys have a lot of space. And your business goes hand in hand with being outside. Maybe not the case in the colder months, but certainly 3 seasons a year, probably 10 months a year, we can certainly do that at your spot. Can you put in perspective the value of having all this outdoor space and how it really helped Meriwether Springs Vineyard and Brewery?
Yeah, for sure. I think the outdoor space is the thing that allowed us to stay alive during that time, clearly. It's particularly spring, summer, and fall. It's particularly attractive because you've got a lot of green. You've got the vineyards. You've got a lot of trees that basically provide shade. So you've got a lot of options there outdoors, and we've been very fortunate to have that kind of space. So the fact that people can come, they can spread out, they can bring their whole family, they can bring pets, all of those things make it so it's a unique destination. Not just us, of course, but all of the businesses, wineries and breweries in particular, that offer that space. It works out really well.
Did you find most of the customers that were coming to you, Coach, were they, super local, or were you seeing folks from, all over Central Virginia and beyond?
That's a great question. We saw people from everywhere, actually, and particularly as people started to get more relaxed and more comfortable, they were coming from farther away. A lot of Northern Virginia, a lot of Tidewater, but a lot of people, even New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, that were coming down because things were tough there. So that was a lot of fun. We always love seeing the locals, of course, right? That's the thing that makes it special. And, you know, we get to know people that we see time and time again, but having people come from other places to discover Albemarle County and how great it is here in Charlottesville and how great that is, that's a special thing to share.
The word, I guess, of COVID, it's almost become cliche, is the word pivot. And you and I know, as fans of team sports, we pivot constantly while playing team sports. Quarter by quarter, in-game pivots, halftime pivots, practice pivots before game time. That mentality is kind of woven into your brain from your time on the sidelines. How about pivot, how it applies to your family business, some of the things that you guys did?
Well, I knew I could count on you to drop a great sports analogy, Jerry, and that's exactly what it is. You know, we had to pivot and change how we did things because we've got a couple of tasting rooms, a couple of inside spaces that are really, really nice and get used a lot, and we knew they weren't an option. We couldn't protect people there. So we basically had to look at the outdoor space and think about how to construct it, how to reconfigure things so that people had a place to come that they can spread out and be comfortable.
I'm curious of your take, because you have undoubtedly the talent of big vision. You see the big picture, you see down the road. I'm curious of your take, Coach, of what 2021, the rest of the year, is going to bring.
I think 2021 is going to be a fantastic year. I think that as COVID resolves, or at least relaxes to a point where people are comfortable, combined with the increase in immunization, I think that people are going to start to travel. And if you're going to travel, where would be a better place to go than right here? You know, I think spring in Virginia, as you well know, you've been here a long time, is a magical time of year. It's a magical place to be. So I think 2021 is going to be fantastic. We're excited about it.
I am too. I got a two-part question for you, Coach. Customers returning from a consumer confidence standpoint is going to be the first at Meriwether Springs Vineyard and Brewery. When do we think the events and the weddings return like they once were?
You know, once were is a difficult thing to answer for sure. I think we'll see the governor probably, everything that we're hearing, I'm sure you're hearing the same thing. The governor, of course, has got a difficult job of walking this fine line, is, from everything we're hearing, going to relax things as COVID as COVID itself starts to resolve. And I think that because of that, we're going to see an ability to have bigger events, to host people that are coming in that want to do things that have been rescheduled or canceled before. And they were disappointed. Of course they were disappointed. But at the same time, I think that the fact that they've got a chance to rebound, it's going to make those events even more special.
What do you think the 2021 wedding looks like, the 2022 wedding looks like, and how is it the same or different from a wedding, say, pre-pandemic?
Great question. I think they're going to be smaller. I think they're going to be more intimate. I think that people are looking for ways to have the same kind of experience, but on a smaller scale. And certainly it can be and should be the same kind of experience. Just because it's smaller doesn't mean that it's not as quality an undertaking. In fact, I believe that most people that we've talked to have said, you know, we've done a smaller event. We found out that it was a better event. So people are ready to do this, but they're going to do it in a different way.
Your place, family, your place, great wine, great beer, an opportunity for human connection, which I know we've missed so much. How about you put that in perspective yourself personally? You're a people person. You like to be around sports. You like to watch it in person. You like to talk to folks. If memory serves me correctly, you were a professor. Maybe you still are a professor, Coach. I mean, you and missing human connection during this pandemic, can you put that in perspective?
It's hard, Jerry, and I know you're wired exactly the same way. You know, you have all of these interactions that are different, and you miss them, and you miss being able to get into the larger groups and interact with people. at the same time, it's been a blessing in some ways because it forces you to concentrate and focus on the things that really matter. And I think people are reconnecting with families in ways they haven't before. I think people are reconnecting with the community in smaller pods, maybe, but still in very intimate ways. And so, I'm really excited about that. I know this is a little irregular, but I have to say this anyway. When I think about community, I think about the things that have happened here since 2017 when we had those horrible events, obviously. But we want to thank you for all the things that you have done, both personally through the program, through your media, the guests you brought in, to make people realize what an incredible place this is. So we appreciate that, Jerry, and it means a lot to this community.
Thank you for saying that, Coach. You get me choked up over here. I really have a lot of respect for this guy. I think the last time that we did an interview, we were, if memory serves correct, on the set of NBC 29 in person, and he gave me a signed copy of one of the books he'd written. And I still, to this day, have that signed copy in my bookshelf at my house. I still, to this day, Coach. About a message of hope. You've always been so good about that. A message of hope, Coach, for everybody that's watching.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to be asked, because I think we're both optimistic, we're both hopeful, we're both positive people. We live in a place built with people exactly that way. Again, the fact that this community, even having gone through 2017, this community is stronger and in a better place than it ever has been before. I think at the end of the day, we have a God that reigns over everything and gives us everything that we need and more. And to think that flows down to family and friends like you, it's an incredible blessing.
Well said, Coach. Goals for your business, Coach, moving forward. What do you want to see from Meriwether Springs Brewery and Vineyard moving forward?
Well, we'll continue to build out the things that we do, the winery, the brewery. We've got a wood-fired pizza oven that's a lot of fun and a lot of music. We're going to bring in a lot of music. We also launched a nonprofit to address the disparities among the workforce in the vineyard. Those guys, as you probably know very well, they work very hard. It's a difficult job. They're the backbone of our industry. So we're trying to mirror a model that Napa put together to support vineyard workers. We've had the governor's office tell us that he will support it. So we're hoping that'll grow. And that should be one of the things that define not just us, but people in this community who have great hearts for the underprivileged.
Why? That's beautiful. Why? Tell me about that. Tell me the advent of this nonprofit.
Well, we over the years, 10 years in now, we've seen these vineyard workers that come from just unbelievably desperate situations. We know our family worked early on in the vineyard, learned how difficult that work was, and then to see the fact that these men and women are going out and they're doing this every day, and it's incredibly difficult. We know that everything that happens to make us successful depends upon them doing what they do. And so as a result of that, we just felt like we've got a great nucleus here in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, with the success of the wineries, that we can build on this and give something back to the people that really make this possible for us.
Guys, this family is the absolute best. Meriwether Springs Vineyard and Brewery, Coach Ed Pierce on the line. Here's the toughest question I'm going to ask you. Get ready for it, Coach. Whose jumper is still the purest, Andy's or Christian's?
Wow.
That's going to get you in trouble, Coach.
Yeah. In a big way, Jerry, you set me up. I would have to say that Christian's jumper is more pure. He was a shooter, but Andy was a grinder, man. He would go down, not the Christian one too, but Andy would fight you, man. He would fight you start to finish. They both had great hearts, and I couldn't be happier for not just the careers they had, but the men that they are. Thank you.
Absolutely, Coach. Coach, thank you for thank you for coming on the show. I sincerely mean this. Anytime the Pierce family, anytime the business wants to come on, we will roll out the red carpet. We will change the schedule for you, Coach.
Well, you're the best, Jerry. We believe that, and thanks for all the work that you do. Keep doing great things,
Our
man.
pleasure. You have a good day.
You too, my man.
Thank you, Coach. Ed Pierce, guys. Just A-plus people. Judah, a nonprofit for the workers working the vineyard. I mean, you know what that's called? That's called being a social entrepreneur or a conscious capitalist. We can run a business in the black, meaning running a business for profit. And we have to run a business in the black or for profit to keep the business in operation. How you're going to have an impact if you're a business owner in a community, first, is to keep your lights on and to keep your business profitable. But if you're able to do that, you can still run a business in the black with still having the mentality of leaving your footprint in a better place than you first arrived. A great example is the nonprofit they start. Another example is the telethon we had on this network where we were on air for 12 hours when we raised over $70,000 for the Thomas Jefferson Community Land Trust and Affordable Housing. Conscious capitalism, social entrepreneur, it's the only way I know how to run a business, and that's the way the Pierce family knows how to run a business as well. We'll go to Alex Urpí in a matter of moments. I got comments coming in. Scott Aaronworth, welcome to the program. He's watching in Virginia Beach. We have folks watching the show in Charlotte, North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, in Buckhead, in Atlanta, Georgia, folks watching in Tallahassee, Naples, outside Philly, and folks on Long Island and across Central Virginia. If you'd like to offer any perspective on the show, put it in the feed. This is a good comment that I want to get to from Fud Guy. He says, Jerry, most power plants powered by diesel are a very small percent of powered by nuclear. If we put all of trust into EV cars, aka green cars, understand that it will give the power companies a monopoly in the market and leaving us without options. We should have more options at the pump, not less. Propane and natural gas should be added as fuel choices to gas and diesel, not less options at the mercy of the electric company. Charlottesville City Yard has a LP and natural gas fill station, but it's not open to the public. We need more options, not restricted to one. We need to look at the bigger picture here. It's not about clean energy, it's about money, and we're being sold on this idea by a great marketing company. Good comment right there from Fud Guy. So he's basically saying, Fud Guy, is this what you're saying? And I don't want to assume, that's why I'm asking you, and I'll get to these other comments. Alex Urpí, let's talk about this when we get you on the show. I think what he's saying is, instead of prioritizing electric vehicles to the point of cannibalizing gasoline vehicles, which you see, that's what's happening. And Alex Urpí is about to tell you how some of the big brands are doing it. So Fud Guy is saying, instead of prioritizing electric vehicles at the sake of cannibalizing gasoline vehicles, we should instead make the electric vehicles and the gasoline vehicles of equal prioritization and offer more opportunities for the marketplace to either charge their car or pump their car full of gas. Because his fear is if we deprioritize gasoline in vehicles, then it further creates the monopoly that the Dominions and the electric companies of the world have over us. That is an interesting take. That is a really interesting take. And as someone who's a libertarian, I'm a guy who believes in less government. I'm a guy who believes in hard work, and I'm a guy who believes in taxing. Taxing is regressive, not progressive, okay? That's how I see taxing, regressive tactics and not progressive tactics. I'm also a guy that believes in a free market where many options are better for us than just a few options. Fud Guy, that was an interesting take. He says let's create more ways to charge your car, more ways to fuel your car of gasoline, and not deprioritize the gas because that further prioritizes the EV and the monopoly that comes with electric vehicles. That's an interesting take right there. I'm going to ask Alex Urpí that take right out of the gate. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Alex now. He's the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Judah's our director. He keeps this show on air. Alex, good afternoon. I'm doing well. What do you make of that comment that Fud Guy just left? He said if we deprioritize gas and prioritize electric, that furthers the monopoly the electric companies have over us. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a very interesting point, a very good point. I think sometimes people do forget that a lot of electric, particularly in the United States still, a lot of electric is still generated by coal. So it's not as though switching over cars to electric just magically makes them everything more green, because coal does generate a lot of that. And I think it comes down to what I think we often forget. I mean, we all want to live in a planet that has clean energy, clean air, better lifestyle, right? What I think we often forget, which is one of those basics of basic economics, is that the optimum level of fossil fuels, right, isn't zero. It's some level that combines, the best of what they can provide for us in terms of making our lives better with the best that we want in terms of our air, less pollution, our air being cleaner. And I think oftentimes we tend to think, well, the best is zero, right? But we don't really want to live in a pre-industrial revolution world where we had zero. That's not exactly the ideal world. So oftentimes I think we have to think a little bit more creatively and how we solve energy problems to be able to say, okay, if the answer is not zero, right? If the optimal level isn't zero, what is it? What do we need to put into the equation? What are the new things we can add? And I don't know whether it be nuclear. I'm not a scientist in terms of being able to tell what are the most efficient. But what are the things we can add to the equation to get to where we want to go without being kind of an all or nothing, like, oh, it needs to be 100% fossil fuels or it needs to be 100% clean energy? Because I think there's different ways to do it, and I think the optimum level isn't always what you think it is going into it. I think he makes a great point to that effect, that you have to be aware of what are the consequences of the solutions we initially come to mind.
Okay, how about this question? And guys, put your comments in the feed. We see them coming in here. And I'll get to this question. Steven's got a great question for you, Alex. I will get to this, Steven, in a matter of moments here. $4 gas in Central Virginia is around the corner. Judah, and you were right, Alex brought this to our attention. Judah overheard, he confirmed. His family's in California. It's well over $5 a gallon right now in California. All right, open-ended question. The impact of gas getting to... The last time I saw $4 gallon prices around here was 2008, 2009, when we were coming out of that housing recession, and that stung everybody.
It's been a while that I can recall. I mean, we've got, and I often looked in my world at like WTI, which is the West Texas crude, for U.S. it's a good barometer. And really, I mean, basically our gas prices have hovered around 57 to 67 through most of 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. They collapsed last year. Now they're back to 64. At least the West Texas today, up to 64. And it does make a significant impact, because you have to remember, especially as the summer comes, the summer is peak demand in terms typically. And we're not only looking at a summer where summer is typically peak demand, but we're talking about a country in the U.S. that may be ramping up demand because we're still not fully reopened. And so that worries me a little, and it worries us a little in the sense that part of what we're seeing with this increase in gas prices is clearly a little bit of a supply shock, in the sense of the United States has announced it doesn't want to be a major player in oil production for the time being, right? And that has serious effects, because it does shift power back to the oil cartels that then adjust their own production to try to push the price up. And so when you combine that, because it's difficult to look at this and say this is a demand. This is purely demand driven, because we're not even back to 100%.
It's purely throttling supply, right? Isn't that what's happening here?
It does certainly seem to look like that. And it may not even be an actual throttle that we're currently seeing. Remember, a lot of oil prices is what do people expect will happen. It's the same thing with when you see interest rates, when you see long-term rates. You're talking not what's current inflation, what's current oil prices, but what do we think that they're going to be in the future. It's always a forward-looking industry when you're talking commodities. So part of what we may be seeing is just people in that business, in the oil trade, in the futures market, saying, well, we think that there is going to be less supply coming out of the United States in the future than there is now. Ergo, the price needs to go up. And so it does worry me, because we're going to see, if we do see a reopening in the summer, now you're dampening, if oil is high enough and gas prices are high enough, you're dampening what you would like to see in terms of people traveling, people going on vacation, really pushing up leisure and hospitality. So I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I'm curious of your take from a micro standpoint in Central Virginia. So many folks have moved to Nelson, the outer counties, because we know the urban ring is so expensive. So folks have no problem going from Waynesboro over the mountain or from Nelson to Charlottesville if they're working at the hospital or Martha Jeff or CFA, whatever it may be. I'm curious of your take of if the prices get 4+, how that's going to impact Central Virginia.
It is going to, I think, make things more challenging. It's going to reduce people's purchasing power. Because you got to remember, CPI, when we look at inflation, that's X food and energy. The big number we get is X food, and they take gas prices out of that number. So when we're looking and saying, oh, well, people, their wages are increasing by this much, inflation's going up by this much, well, for the average person from the micro scale of their actual life in Central Virginia, gas prices going up is a major component of that. It may not show up in all our big statistical numbers, but it's there and it reduces it. And I think that's a great point, because when you're looking at rents as high as they are in Charlottesville, prices to buy homes as high as they are in Charlottesville, well, your first solution is, well, move further away and commute.
They call it in the real estate business, drive till you qualify.
Exactly. And so now you're saying, well, that drive just a bigger piece of your budget. So yeah, maybe your budget got saved, because I mean, rent is obviously the largest component of anyone's budget at this point, the average family. So now you're saying, well, I saved on my rent budget by moving out of Charlottesville, but now my transportation budget that I need to get to work, to do my job, just went up 2-3-fold.
Yeah, 2x. It 2x.
That's in a matter of months.
Yeah.
And that is a significant hit on the ability of people to consume. And that's kind of where we are, because I mean, people have been saving. You opened the show talking about it. People have been saving because we haven't been able to do anything. Haven't been able to go out and spend. Right? And now that the opportunity to do that is here, now the budget gets sliced. And so I think that's definitely something we're going to have to look out for and see. I think part of it is going to be to see what do wages do? Our business is going to be able to pay more, or things going to pick up, and we don't want to fall into one of those cycles where less business is lower wages means less business means lower wages. You want to stay out of that spiral.
I mean, I learned so much from you. This is what I'm fearful of. Educate us, please. We're dealing with some inflation. We just put trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of money into the American economy and essentially gave people free money. Cost of goods, as a result, are going to go up. Prices are going to go up. You have some inflation with some gasoline prices that are increasing here. I'm trepid. I'm a guy that's obviously eager for the economy to reopen. I started the program by saying we're saving more than ever because we haven't been able to go out, and we have pent-up demand to go and spend now. But I'm still trepid with those two things I brought up. Please persuade me otherwise.
Ooh, I'm not sure I can persuade otherwise. I mean, I think the one thing I would say on a positive note, because I definitely agree. I agree in the sense that, look, we came a long way back last year from the bottom in terms of economic growth, from the bottom of that pandemic-induced recession, right? And I do think this year we're not going to see that again. We're not going to see another massive, we're not going to see equivalent of 3 or 4% GDP growth annualized this year. Because there's only so much you can come back, and there's still a lot of residual damage. A lot of businesses closed last year that are not coming back. They're gone for good. So I think that still we need to keep an eye out. And then we have these other headwinds of what I think the overall inflation, what I would say to that is temporary, in the sense of I think a lot of energy, I think a lot of what we're seeing on the general inflation is indeed you're pouring all this money into the system. Bond yields looking out to the future saying this is a lot of money. What do we do about it? What is the Fed's not saying anything right now? I do believe, and I think my father is sort of with me on this, that the Federal Reserve has a very big incentive to make sure that rates in terms of how they'll be impacted by inflation are going to stay low. Because the U.S. government cannot afford for interest rates on bonds to go up. It can't happen. They just spent another $2 trillion. They're not going to pay 3-4% interest on that money. It would eat the budget. And so I think the Federal Reserve is going to be willing to let inflation go a little higher. I mean, if you're talking an average of 4, that means you can go a little. It may go a little higher than 4. But I think long term, I think the good news is, that we're coming out of this. And as confidence is the number one, I think, driver. Consumer confidence is the driver here. And even though budgets will be impacted, I definitely think they will be. I definitely think inflation is something people worry about, they get concerned about. I do think we have to be a little positive in the sense of nothing can be more fear-inducing than pandemic. And as that goes away, that's a lot of confidence boost. I mean, I have a difficult time thinking that fear of inflation is more of a drag than
fear of a pandemic.
Pandemic is ending. Will be a boost. And I think that's the sort of tailwind behind us is the end of the pandemic. That as people feel more comfortable going out, they will go out and say, you know what, I need to appreciate and enjoy the life I have now because it's very fragile.
This guy, a super smart dude, CEO of Emergent Financial Services, Alex Urpí. What was the factoid you gave me? Was it Ford that we were talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, I was told was visiting a Ford dealer last year when they were telling us that basically Ford sedans there's going to be no sedans that Ford makes that are not electric/hybrid. They're replacing, there's going to be Ford SUVs, Ford trucks, but the sedan models, your average, the little cars on the road, is going to be hybrid/electric models. So they are going that route. I mean, I heard recently, I have a friend who loves Land Cruisers. And he knows who he is if he watches this, that he's a Land Cruiser enthusiast. And he was stunned to tell me last year, he said, Alex, did you know they're ending the Land Cruiser in North America?
Really?
Toyota. Yeah, the Land Cruiser in North America from Toyota is done.
Why? Because it was such a gas guzzler?
Because it's such a gas guzzler, and it's a very expensive model to be a gas guzzler, and they're just moving in a different direction. I think the luxury version from Lexus is still there, but the average Land Cruiser is just there. Toyota said, it's not worth it to us in North America, which is, I mean, a huge move, and tells you where the direction is going in terms of where cars are going and what the future looks like there.
So I guess you get the question all the time, not this specific question, but what stocks do you like? You get all the time. How about electric vehicles? Give us EV perspective from a position standpoint.
From a position standpoint, I mean, one of our big things that we like to look at, we always say, at least for Emergent, when we talk to our clients, we're like, you always want that opportunistic piece. But the key with opportunistic is, what do I believe in 10 to 20 years into the future? Because there's always going to be short-term things. I mean, if you look in short-term, there's always things, places you can go, and it's a little riskier. But when you look ahead, okay, what do I want to be in? What do I want to hold for 10 to 20 years? What do I want to do to find the next Amazon, in a sense, right? Because, I mean, Amazon, that's the
unicorn.
It's the unicorn, right?
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere recently that if you put $10,000 in Amazon in like 1997, you've got millions today. So you want to sort of find that, but you have to hold that to get to that point. From Amazon 97 to now, you got to hold Amazon 20 years. You can't. So you need to be looking ahead. And so we definitely think clean energy is something you want to be in, and that includes. I mean, one of the keys there is it's not just electric cars. I think electric cars is the really tempting one. But you're talking things like electric cars, you're talking batteries. Because as we go if we do indeed succeed in going to a solar, wind kind of environment where we're generating electricity that way, you need the batteries that can store that, because those aren't with you every day. Renewables are not a consistent, the sun doesn't come out every morning, the wind doesn't always blow. You need to be able to store those. And so you want to be involved in the battery processes. There's a lot of, I think, potential in terms of biotech in the energy space. I mean, there are companies that I think it was one of the car companies or the oil companies back in the 2000s was already looking into hydrogen as a fuel for cars. And I know that pops up on the radar every once in a while and then disappears again. You've got companies that they use algae to try to generate energy. It's amazing some of what they're doing in the biotechnology space that's actually energy related and not health related. So that's something we're always looking into as well on the on the front of where is the future going for energy.
Tesla is the sexy pick. Should it be the sexy pick? Is it the right pick? From my standpoint, Tesla seems to be a bit more ahead of the game and a bit more vertically integrated with its supply chain than some of its competitors. Elon Musk is not only trying to own electric vehicles, he's trying to own the entire supply chain that is electric vehicles. Is it fair to say that this is the right pick, or is it not the right pick?
I think it's definitely one of them. I mean, I think at this point it's in the S&P 500. It's in a lot of the major indices for energy.
Is it overvalued? Is a better question. Is it overvalued?
Ooh, short term, perhaps. I think long term, it could very well be undervalued. I mean, 10 to 20 year. Because I mean, short term, it's impacted by last year. A lot of things from last year going into 2021 turned out being slightly overvalued given where the company was and where the stock price was. I mean, Tesla last year was just one of many. But I think some of the things you have to keep in mind, right, is that, I mean, to then go back to Amazon, right? 97 to, Amazon took a nice little leap at the beginning of its career, fell down a lot, and then took off years later. So you might have sat there on like a 400% Amazon gain back in the day and said, might be a little overvalued, let me get out. But then you missed out like a 10,000% gain, right? So on the long term, when you're talking 10, 20 years, where do I want to be? You want to be in companies, I do think, like Tesla, like Plug Power that are in there. You want to be in a lot of them, I would say. I mean, my go-to is always, where can I find the ETFs for the sector?
You like ETFs.
I do like ETFs.
Because you like to hedge your risk. He's a smart man.
I do. For me, I want to be in, if I believe in a sector, like what I do believe in what Tesla's doing. I think he's in a great position. I think he's a smart guy. I think people underestimate like you said, the vertical integration, the battery component,
the chips,
the ideas he gets off the space.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the space is a different company, there's cross-pollination there when it's both headed by the same guy. So there's so much potential, right? But my thinking is always, all right, I might have a little piece personally in Tesla itself, but I want to be in all of them. I want to get the whole index, and I want to ride that index, that space, that robotics, that clean energy index. I want to ride that for 10, 20 years. Because I want to be in a scenario where if I miss out on the one, I don't want to be in a scenario where I picked what I thought was the winning company and it turned out not to be, but the sector was a winner. And I'm like, dang, I had the right idea and it was just the bad execution. So I'm always like, you know what, give myself a chance that if the idea is good and the sector's really going to take off and it's really going to be part of our economy in the future, let me just be in there and get something. I want to be involved in that, and I want to do the quickest way to go from idea to execution. And sometimes for me, that for us and for our clients, that definitely involves ETFs and sectors when it comes to portfolios.
Let me see if I can answer this question from Leslie. Leslie says, Jerry, I love your show. Please let us know what an ETF is. And let me see if I can do it. Leslie, an ETF is an exchange-traded fund. It's a type of security that tracks an index, a sector, or a commodity, and it can be traded on the stock exchange like a regular stock can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You're exactly right. 100%.
Okay, there you go, Leslie.
It's similar to a mutual fund.
Yeah.
For people who know mutual funds, it's a mutual fund that trades all day long instead of just at 5 o'clock at night is priced.
There you go. I love what the Tuesday segment is turning into with this man right here. It's so amazing. It's like my passions here. It's like my passions. All right, today y mañana, Thursday, not tomorrow, Thursday at 10:15 a.m., Alex and his father, Xavier, host a fantastic program. What do you guys have planned for Thursday at 10:15?
Thursday's going to be a lot of fun. So as always, my dad and I, we're going to be talking. We may bring up the Amazon topic again. I think it's something that's been on our mind just in terms of really getting people to think long term. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because it's so tempting. I think the two great temptations with investing, all right, are that you sell too early, like you had a 20-year period, and then you're like, oh, this looks good after 2 months, let me get out, right? And then you miss out on the long-term gains, and then really selling too late. In other words, let me ride this guy to the bottom because I don't want to I don't want to admit that I messed up. Right. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think it's really important for people to think about. And then our guest, we're going to have Jonathan Hernandez Toscano. He is Cristel Noel's brother, but he's in so many things. First off, he's at a remodeling company with his dad. Right. So he's in that business. He's going to tell us a little bit, I think, about how that's going, what construction remodeling looks like. And then he's got his hands in so many things. He's always a guy coming up with new ideas. He's been in the restaurant industry.
That's how I know that name is from a restaurant. Was it on West Main, the restaurant?
Yes, he was involved with the one on West Main. He was managing it for a while.
Right.
So he knows a little bit about the ins and outs of that area and what's going on. Always thinking of new projects. I've been talking to him for, goodness, it must be years now, with 5 or 6 years with Forward Adelante, just knowing him. So he's going to be a great person to talk to and really see how what he's thinking of what's next, what are the opportunities out there, what the industry looks like in construction. So I think it's going to be really fun to talk with him. And he's a fun guy to be around, exciting guy.
I cannot wait. And I'm absolutely loving what's happening on Tuesdays with this guy, Alex Urpí, a bright man, the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Guys, Emergent Financial Services, a trusted name in this finance game. We will see you on Thursday, my friend. Thank you for making us smarter today.
Oh no, thank you. It's always, this is so much fun. I'm really, really loving the vibe of this segment.
I feel the same, Alex. You have a good afternoon.
You too. Take care.
Thank you, Alex. CEO Emergent Financial Services. He's awesome. His father, Xavier, is super awesome. When these two guys sit on our set and go back and forth, dude, I'm glued to their show from start to finish. Whether I'm in the studio listening in person, a lot of the times I listen to the shows on our network as a viewer or listener will, not sitting in the studio, but Bluetoothing in my car or listening in some capacity through here, because I want the actual experience that you guys are getting here. I want to offer criticism. I want to offer positive. I want to offer ways to improve. And how I do that is by listening to the content that airs on our network. I listen to all the shows that air on our network. And these two dudes are like evolving so quickly into just fantastic broadcasters. I mean, I've been doing broadcasting for 20 years. And Alex and Xavier, they are at broadcasting peak. And they've been doing this for what? Less than 2 months, Judah? 2 months, their show, Today y Mañana?
2 months.
Yeah, Thursdays at 10:15 on the I Love CVille Network. They are A-plus people. Couple more things out of the notebook, J-Dubs, and then we'll get out of here. We got a conference call in 13 minutes with our developer client. Money from March Madness, quickly, if you can get that headline on screen. This is fascinating, okay? This was from CNBC. The NCAA basketball tournament, as you know, March Madness begins this week. CBS Sports and Turner Sports, who have the broadcasting rights for March Madness, get ready for this. They're predicting $1 billion, $1 billion with the B, plus in advertising revenue just for this one tournament. 20 million people are expected to watch the championship game. 47 million are expected to place gambling bets throughout the tournament. Because of COVID, because of the lockdown, and because people are still a bit uncertain to leave, this March Madness is predicted to be the top viewership in the history of the big dance. $1 billion on the line in advertising revenue for CBS and Turner Sports. Media Radar, an advertising data firm, estimates the 2019 NCAA March Madness tournament generated $1.18 billion in ad spend for CBS and Turner Sports. Please keep in mind that the networks pay a little over $800 million for the broadcasting rights. So boys and girls, some quick math. If this tournament generates $1.2 billion or more in revenue and the broadcasting rights are $800 million, you got a hell of a lot of meat left on the bone, do you not? And this tournament is expected to be the most watched one in the history of the big dance because of the influence of COVID, keeping people at home and on their couch watching television. Wow. Okay, and one more topic that I'd love to get to you. You know I'm a sports fan. Fitzmagic is coming to the Washington football team. A 38-year-old journeyman gunslinger. Didn't Ryan Fitzpatrick go to Harvard? I'm pretty sure yeah, he did go to Harvard. In 2005, he was a 7th-round draft pick. Think about that. In 2005, Ryan Fitzpatrick was a 7th-round draft pick number 250 by the St. Louis Rams. Now, this guy is 38 years old, has built a hell of an NFL career. He's going to probably be Ron Rivera's starting quarterback in D.C. He's got 223 touchdowns on his career and 169 interceptions. He last played for the Miami Dolphins. Fitzmagic in D.C. Is he the future? No. Is he better than Dwayne Haskins? Hell yes. Hell yes. All right, that's the show. My name is Jerry Miller. This show powered by Ting Fiber Internet. The best internet at the best price possible is only through this link, ilovecville.ting.com. You get a $288 savings on crazy fast fiber internet. My name is Jerry Miller for Judah Wickhauer, for Ed Pierce, for Alex Urpí. This is the I Love CVille show that features the best of Charlottesville, Virginia.